Welcome back to Big Mouth and welcome to the dceu Daily. Big Mouth is the #1 channel for Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut coverage, as I promised you from the very beginning. No, we're not the biggest channel. We don't have all the subscribers. We don't have all the views. But I believe that this is the #1 channel for Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut coverage. Fact. I don't have the best microphone. I don't have the best camera. But when we're talking about something that we love and we're passionate about, does that really matter? Can you see me? Yes. Can you hear me? Yes. Then that's all that fucking matters. And on today's dceu Daily, we are going to be talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut reviews and reading out two of the best from two of the most respected sources in the world of movie reaction, from people who are respected, not from your little ones, not from the ones that have got an axe to grind. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I also will react to movie critic and movie journalist Helen O'Hara going onto Twitter and calling us fans shitheads. And I've got a bit to say about that and her good friend Edgar Wright. So don't forget, you can follow me on Twitter at MoviesTVMad. Give me a tag, come and say hi. I'm a very, very friendly lad. Lad Mick, you're 48 years old. You're a senior citizen. Anyway, right. No one was more shocked than me by Owen Gleiberman's review from Variety on Zack Snyder's Justice League review. Or at least the header of the review, because I like to read things naturally, so I have natural reactions as I'm reading them to you, my subscribers, and my viewers. So let's go. Zack Snyder's Justice League review, the director's 4-hour cut, is truly a new film and a knockout. And this is from Variety, of course, and as I've already said, by Owen Gleiberman. So I'm really looking forward to reading this out, because basically, this is what you need to know. Owen and Variety are one of the top sources for entertainment news and all types of news. And when they do a review header like that, I'm very, very interested. So when you see people like from Collider giving it a bad review, or people who have got an axe to grind giving it a bad review, just remember this before you get all depressed and you react to them and you get all toxic. Variety gave us a great review, and that's all that matters. Right now, on Rotten Tomatoes, we have 75% for this movie. This movie was never going to go to 90%. Never. Never ever has a Zack Snyder movie, and maybe, call me out if I'm wrong, got a 90, 95, 98, 99% on Rotten Tomatoes. And also remember, although the 75% for me is absolutely fantastic, a Zack Snyder movie getting 75%. More of the reviews are positive than negative. That's so important. Well, we saw what happened with Wonder Woman 84's Rotten Tomatoes score. Pre-release, on release, really high. And then slowly but surely, when people unpackaged the movie, they realised there were massive issues. And now I think the movie's rotten, if I remember rightly. So we shouldn't celebrate just yet. But an initial score of 75% is awesome. Also, on the 18th, it's not just Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut that's been released. A behind-the-scenes documentary is being released as well. I'm very excited to see that as well. So let's read this review. It takes an extraordinary, diverse skill set to direct a great comic book movie. You've got to be a visual effects wizard, a master of story and pace, a popcorn humanist, who can find the relatable dimension of a bunch of freaks in capes and breastplates and spandex, and enough of an artist to tie the whole thing together into an indelible big vision. It's no wonder that in the years since Hollywood got eaten alive by comic book culture, the superhero movies that have achieved a genuine sweeping transcendence can just about be counted on one hand. The Dark Knight, Spider-Man 2, Black Panther, a few others. And I mean, I like Black Panther, but I don't think it's a comic book classic. In my opinion, I think the third act lets it down. That's just my opinion. To that hallowed list, I would now add Zack Snyder's Justice League. Wow! That's hefty praise indeed. So remember, when they slaughter this film in other reviews, Variety liked this movie and called it one of the best superhero comic book movies of all time. The thrilling, restored 4-hour-long director's cut version of the 2017 DC Comics extravaganza, the new movie, and make no mistake, it really is a new movie, is more than a vindication of Snyder's original vision. It's a grand, nimble, and immersive entertainment, a team of heroes' origin story that at heart is classically conventional, yet it's now told with such an intoxicating, childlike sincerity and omnibus fairy tale wonder that it takes you back to what comic books at their best have always sought to do. Make you feel like you're seeing gods at play on Earth. Remember the people who said Zack Snyder knows nothing about DC, that Zack Snyder doesn't understand DC characters? Sit on that. We go on. It was online fans who first dubbed this project the Snyder Cut. In March 2017, Snyder, after created conflict with the studio and the suicide of his daughter, walked away from the film and saw it handed over to Joss Whedon, who rewrote and reshot more than half of it. In the minds of the Warner Bros. Executives still reeling from the bumpy launch of their DC multiverse, Snyder's version was too long and too dark. Whedon chopped out the backstory and a fair amount of the front story, swapping in jokes and glib patter and a kind of brightly lit gee whiz oora. In other words, he churned out a hastily shot, audience-friendly version of Justice League synced to precede the beats of corporate storytelling that wound up pleasing next to no one. Timing, they say, is everything. And there are two ways that the new Justice League turns out to be comically well-timed. It's premiering a year into the pandemic, which means that audiences have now gone for 12 months without experiencing the primal joy of a high-flying fantasy escapism on the big screen. We've starved for it. We're starved for it. And though it's true that Justice League will be seen by and large on HBO Max, the film is such a feast of bravura, eye candy, and emotionally serious spectacle that it seems to be delivering all the excitement we've been missing. As someone who has never been shy about dissing the global obsession with comic book cinema, I found the film totally tap my inner fanboy. The 4 hours of it glide by in an addictive trance. So let's get this clear here. Owen is not mad about superheroes and comic books. Owen is probably a fan like me of films growing up, a variety of films, A Perfect World, Kevin Costner, things like Field of Dreams, Kevin Costner, a variety of different types of films. Really the film industry has been destroyed now, decimated, because we've just got the same version of the same movie. For someone who appreciates film in general to be saying this, you must not underestimate what we are hearing here. But the other way the experience of Justice League is shaped by timing is that now that Snyder has restored the film to its pop operatic grandeur, it strikingly echoes the sinister extravagance of the Avengers saga, notably the last two installments of it, which hadn't come out when the Bowwoodized, trimmed to the bone Justice League appeared in 2017. Justice League accomplishes in 4 hours what those films did in 9. It unites a team of superheroes but never forgets that each of them is seriously worthy of his or her own story. It pits them against a humongous slab of rock-jawed evil, in this case the molten Darkseid, who got trimmed out of 2017 version, and his loyal demon henchman Steppenwolf, who seeks to control all life in the universe. And it's finally a startling tale of death and resurrection. The 5 members of Justice League, gathered up by Batman and Wonder Woman, realise that they can't save Earth without Superman, who is no longer with them. So they use one of the 3 mother boxes, the sources of infinite energy everyone is fighting, to possess to raise Clark Kent from the dead. A plot twist that was there in the 2017 version. But that's the thing. It was just there. Here, the hard-won reawakening of Superman becomes a transporting saga of its own. By the way, I have no idea if this is a spoilery review, so maybe you may want to switch off and watch it after you've seen the film yourself. Sorry, I forgot to mention that because I haven't proved this. I haven't seen this before. As I've said, I like us to react to these things together because we're all fans. That's what I am anyway. I'm no better than you. I'm just a fan. The new Justice League exudes a majestic sense of cosmic historical evil. Its tone is less reminiscent of other DC or Marvel movies than of Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy. The camaraderie among the superheroes is vastly deepened, with the cheeseball wisecracks exercised. They develop a moving affinity for each other in one of many examples of how sharp and Snyder's filmmaking is. Ezra Miller's Flash is introduced with a far wittier dialogue than anything Joss Whedon came up with, followed by a mesmerising bullet-time sequence in which he saves a young woman from a car accident, as we know as the wonderful Kiersey, who plays Iris West. I said that just in case. An episode that beautifully sets up the hidden empathy of his speed of light character. Gal Gadot's diner has the stalwart but tensely trepidatious presence that got fumbled in Wonder Woman 1984. Let me say that again for you lot in the back of the fucking room. Trumpader's presence that got fumbled in Wonder Woman 1984. Patty Jenkins doesn't get Wonder Woman. Zack Snyder does. Ray Fisher's Cyborg has acquired the resonance of a half-machine Hamlet, and Ben Affleck's Batman is like a different character. With all that Ben-friendly banter gone, he embraces the gruff-voiced, dread-tinged, sinister Bruce with sterling command. Let's not forget, Ben Affleck is a critically acclaimed actor. He's very, very good at what he does. Beyond that, this has to be one of the most visually spellbinding comic book movies ever made. And by the way, I have unfollowed Daniel RPK for lying about how long Superman's in the film and saying that the visual effects were like a PS2 game. Despicable. So I'm not going to have anything to do with people like that. The clashing battles never gave you that weary, here's some more CGI feeling, because they've been staged with a supreme conviction that's more Seven Samurai than super invincible. And let's be clear here. This is the VFX team that Patty Jenkins fired from Wonder Woman 84. Yeah. Kieran Hines Steppenwolf with his Horns of Evil is still the prime antagonist. But while he seemed a trifle a fight in the 2017 version, here he has been reimagined as a splendid Hulk covered in gleaming herringbone platelets that bristle with his emotion, and he's also a disgraced assassin who will stoop to the unspeakable. Justice League ends with what may be the best post-comic book movie teaser ever, as Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor, then Jared Leto's Joker, hold court in twin lectures of doom that make you hungry to see the movies they promised. It's not just that these characters are back, so is the thing that too many comic book films have destroyed, the sensation that something's at stake. Wow. What a fucking review. The guy's got no negatives. Owen is a really good journalist. This is Variety. Can I just say this again? This is fucking Variety, everyone. Variety has given us literally 10 stars. I say us because I feel like Zack Snyder's my father, my brother. I keep on joking on the internet. Can't Zack and Deb adopt me? I've been in one of the rooms watching their movies, just chilling out. You wouldn't even know I was there. But, you know, I feel like I'm part of the family, and I think all the fandom does. And by the way, a little message to Zack. I know you felt really bad that the virtual premiere didn't go very well last night, and there was a delay, and the company messed it up. Listen, first of all, it's not your fault, obviously, and also a hell of a lot of people were invited to this virtual premiere. And, you know, when so many people are watching something at once, it's very, very difficult. I can imagine how frustrating it was for people. Certainly not Zack's fault. Zack apologising, then losing his shit about the company on Vero. Fucking hilarious. But you got to see it eventually, and I hope you had a good time. So, yeah. But back to the review. It really just tells you something about the film, doesn't it? It tells you what you've got to look forward to. And unfortunately, it did spoil the teaser there, I think, but it didn't go into the cliffhanger ending. But it didn't go into too much detail. So that's Variety's review. And as I say, first time I've read the full review, and I couldn't be happier. You know, it seems honest, genuine, And, you know, he talks about real proper stakes that Zack Snyder's Justice League does in one 4-hour movie that the MCU did in 9 movies. And that tells you something. Now, Roger Ebert was one of the best critics in the world back in the day. Unfortunately, he passed away many years ago. But RogerEbert.com keeps his legacy going. And they have done an apparently really positive review of Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. And I want to read it. This is by Matt Zoller Seitz. I think that's how you say his name. Zack Snyder's Justice League runs for at 4 hours and 2 minutes. That's 242 minutes. That's longer than Avatar, Avengers Endgame, The Irishman, Dancing with Wolves, Malcolm X, Lawrence of Arabia, or any of the Godfather movies. If it were released to big screens, it would tie Kenneth Branagh's 1996 adaptation of Hamlet for being the longest major studio theatrical release in history. And reader, if it ever does get released to theatres, I'll go and see it again, just as long as it's in IMAX and there's an intermission. Wow, I'll be there with you, mate. So, some other time, perhaps we can talk more about the road that led to this moment, along with its implications for the major studio relationships to more entitled or belligerent elements in fandom. Ooh, entitled, are we? My own feelings are summed up in the clickhole headline. The worst person you know just made a great point. Oh dear. I don't know if I want to read that. Bottom line, I don't see how it's possible to put this version of the project next to the 2017 version and not recognise that it's superior in every way. Can I just say something and remind everyone when it's time for my review after I've seen this on Thursday? There will be no comparison to Justice League. I do not see the point. I think it's lazy. I think it's pointless. I want to treat this as the only Justice League movie ever made, because as far as I'm concerned, it is the only Justice League film ever made. This 4-hour cut is the kind of brazen auteurist vision that Martin Scorsese was calling for when he complained rightly that most modern superhero movies don't resemble cinema as he's always understood and valued it. Wow. I wonder what Marty would make of this film, though. Would Marty actually want to watch it? Oh, I hope Marty can do his own review. Wouldn't that be amazing? The backstory. Justice League was meant to be the third in a series of Zack Snyder's superhero films after Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. But Snyder and his chief collaborator and wife, executive producer Deborah Snyder, stepped down during post-production to grieve for their daughter, who had died unexpectedly. The releasing studio Warner Bros. Was already pressuring the Snyders to add humour following the relative box office disappointment of the figuratively and literally funeral Batman v Superman, which ended with Superman's death. Basically, I don't know if you like Batman v Superman. Great movie. So shut up. Anyway, Joss Whedon, writer-director of the first 2 Avengers films, was brought in to take the project over the finish line, contain the running time to 2 hours, and make sure things were kept light. Whedon ended up rewriting and reshooting most of the movie. Whedonizing it was deadpan quips and shooting new action scenes that, while competent new action scenes that, while lacked turbocharged. Yeah, let's say that again. While competent, lacked the turbocharged delirium Snyder is known for. According to some behind-the-scenes accounts, less than 20% of what ended up in the final release was directed by Snyder. The recut, it feels more correct to call it a restoration, contains 0 Whedon footage. It's broken into 7 chapters with titles, each of which has a scene self-contained quality reminiscent of issues of a monthly comic. Wow. As well as old-fashioned episodic television, the Snyder Cut is as much of a medium blurring is it TV or is it a movie project as WandaVision's Small Axe and Season 3 of Twin Peaks. Only a silver of what's on screen is wholly new, notably forward-looking teaser conversation between Batman and the Joker. But Snyder generated so much material originally, much of it shelved by Warner Bros. Without being properly finished by visual effects artists, that the totality still feels like a new work. There's no point getting deep into the weed of a scene-by-scene comparison because the Snyder cult will surely cover it in 9/11 Commission detail, and because there's no longer any compelling reason to watch the Whedon cut, which I liked more than most viewers. Beyond mere curiosity, the first version was a Frankenstein patchwork rescue mission meant to fulfill studio notes, one of which, more humour, seems redundant in retrospect. This cut has plenty of funny bits. I think that's a surprise to all of us, even though I know that Chris Terrio said it would be lighter. I am surprised how much gags people are saying in this movie there are, and apparently they hit really well. Ranging from the dry, reactive glances and self-lacerating remarks of Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne Batman to the workplace anxiety of chief villain Steppenwolf Kieran Hines, who's basically a razor-armoured middle manager on probation with his nephew boss Darkseid Ray Porter, to the Jeff Goldblum, Bill Murray-style characters as sportscaster commentary, Barry Allen, Flash, Ezra Miller, to the visual wit of Snyder's direction, particularly in scenes where the Flash perceives time being slowed down, and we get to watch as he rearranges the universe item by item, like a fussy chef replating every meal of a banquet just before the staff wheels it out to the guests. The vast majority of these blockbusters are not intended at freestanding works of expression. They're meant to function as cogs in a content-producing machine that largely avoids painful or unanswerable questions, feeding disposable imagery and situations to viewers who expect to be rewarded for their brand loyalty and familiarity with comics lore by being given more and more and more of the thing they already know they like. The Snyder Cut, in comparison, gets closer to what Scorsese envisioned than nearly anything else the Janier has produced. It's a corporate product that feels as if it's sprung from a fever dream, like Superman Returns, Ang Lee's Hulk, and such uncategorizably kooky, daring, non-superhero comics adaptations as Popeye, A History of Violence, Road to Perdition, and Near American Splendor. Or for the matter, non-comic book films maudit like One from the Heart, Speed Racer, The Hudsucker Proxy, and Playtime. Interesting comparisons. The Whedon cut favoured Bruce Wayne Batman and Diana Prince Wonder Woman Gal Gadot, and marginalised Clark Kent Superman Henry Cavill, Arthur Curry, Aquaman Jason Momoa, Barry Allen The Flash, and Victor Stone Cyborg Ray Fisher. This cut is an ensemble picture that does as good a job as the MCU's Avengers films of depicting a band of heroes as strong-willed, fully rounded individuals who had lives and issues before the main action started, and must learn to work together in service of battling Steppenwolf and Darkseid and resurrecting Superman, Clark Kent. The most remarkable restoration character-wise is the Cyborg storyline. It mirrors without duplication all other stories of characters dealing with mixed feelings about their parents and upbringing. See also Bruce Wayne's relationship to his butler surrogate parent Alfred Jeremy Irons, as well as the memory of his murdered father and mother. Wow! Spoilers, I'm sorry, there are spoilers here. Clark Kent's relationship to his sainted mum, Martha Diane Lane, and the departed Jonathan Kent, Kevin Costner, and Jor-El Russell Crowe. Wonder Woman's feelings about leaving her family, her island, and its culture, and their feelings about her departure. Aquaman's resentment at being a bi-species hybrid torn between two worlds and feeling abandoned by both. And Barry's tortured relationship with his incarcerated criminal dad, Billy Crudup. Fisher's performance is the best in a film filled with strong acting. Cyborg's resentment of his scientist father, Joe Morton, aka Skynet's daddy in Terminator 2, is built out with empathy and care and paid off in a genuinely moving climax that offers redemption without cancelling ill will. Also noticeably improved Affleck's graying, world-weary Batman, who channels the burned-out Clint Eastwoodian Dark Knight from Frank Miller's 1980s comics, and the relationship between Clark Kent and Lois Lane, Amy Adams, which delves more deeply into grief than any DCEU film, strikes idealistic romantic notes reminiscent of the Christopher Reeve era. Wow! Wow! And I know a lot of you who love Snyder's DC don't appreciate that's been said, but I think what they're trying to say is you can feel the relationship and love between them. Don't forget, Clark's been dead for a long time. This is devastated Lois. So, wow, I'm just even more excited now. Era, and even gets into the monkey's paw aspect of bringing a dead superhero back to life. I don't know what that means, but I'm interested to find out. Yeah, there's a plot, basically the same as the first Justice League, and for that matter the Avengers movies. A superhuman megalomaniacal bad guy wants access to a source of time and space dominating superpowers and can only get it by cobbling together scattered elements. 6 Infinity Stones in the MCU series, 3 magic boxes in this movie. But plot might be the 10th most important thing on this movie's mind. If that, this is the definitive cut of the tale, not just in terms of canonical events and actions. Aquaman director James Wan and Wonder Woman series director Patty Jenkins are both on record as saying that they consulted with Snyder on continuity, but aesthetic purity, some scenes have been moved and reshaped, others have been resurrected or added, and everything has been lengthened. But what registers most strongly in the film's sense of space and place, which might make one wonder if many of the justified complaints about Snyder's other superhero pictures stem from his own sensibility and the commercial imperatives of this budget level being at odds. Let's take a moment and talk about the look of the movie, because it's key to what makes the project feel unified. Zack Snyder's Justice League is framed in the squarish, roughly 4:3 Academy ratio rather than the narrow and wide format preferred by most epics. The result has the subtle psychological effect of making this newish work feel somehow old. When Junkie XL's score is blasting and the members of the Justice League are doing heroic things and not blabbing amongst themselves, suddenly we're watching the superhero version of a symphonic silent epic in the vein of Intolerance, Sunrise, or Metropolis. Just scene after scene of impeccably composed panoramas like those mammoth oil paintings that depict tiny figures in the foreground dwarfed by mountains and sky, except in this case it's the heroes and villains who are dwarfed by landscapes and all the cosmos of mortals looking up in awe at superheroes looming overhead, silhouetted against sunlight, clouds, fire, or atmospheric haze. Wow! Wow! Well, I want to watch it now. I want to watch this bloody film now. Jesus Christ! These reviews are off the fucking scale. Uncharacteristically for Snyder, the camera often doesn't move unless it needs to. That is uncharacteristic. He likes to wobble it a bit, like what they did in the 24 series with Kiefer Sutherland. So that is interesting. Often doesn't move unless it needs to. And the scene doesn't cut away until it has wrung out the last drop of whatever vibe it was cultivating. Throughout, the direction seems not merely unhurried, but meditative, to the point of pokiness. This is the Santango of superhero flicks, an art house Taliban killer. The point is not to shovel plot information at the viewer. The point is to create a fantastic world where metaphors are real and to give you time to roam around in it and savor all the details. Scenes often start long before screenwriting manuals tell you they should, with characters approaching and or entering regions, cities or facilities, and continue way past the point when significant exposition has been communicated. This is a feature, not a bug, and it results in a good number of scenes and sequences that make the film feel special, even as they eliminate any possibilities that Zack Snyder's Justice League will tell a propulsive, coherent, orderly tale. One such moment is an interlude in a battle between the Amazon infantry led by Wonder Woman's mother, Queen Hippolyta, Connie Nielsen, and Steppenwolf, and his army of winged armored insect men deployed by Snyder as if they were steampunk cousins of the Wicked Witch's flying monkeys. A group of characters pause to take a long, anxious look at the water in a sea cove where a temple has collapsed, presumably crushing and drowning the enemies within. The camera fixates on the waves, watching and listening while they churn. It's hypnotic. Another memorable bit is a more self-conclusive art for art's sake. Aquaman, having concluded important business in a seaside pub, walks along a pier, jutting into the sea, unfazed by immense waves clashing ahead of him. The waves are powerful enough to knock over an Apastor, but Aquaman just strolls into them, vanishing into saltwater mist. The scene is filmed in slow motion with no dialogue or sound effects and backed with a pop song cranked to 11. Christopher Nolan made a lot of noise about modelling The Dark Knight on Michael Mann's Heat, but this is one of the many moments in this film that are more man-like in the way that they suspend time. The Aquaman seaside power walk is also reminiscent of the moment in the Royal Tenenbaums when the love-struck Richie watches Margot walk off a bus, except here it's not about one character's love for another, but the director's love for Aquaman. Wow. Honestly, fucking hell. And the actor who plays him, he loves Jason, we know that. But he loves these characters. This is what the reviewer is saying. It's so obvious. He loves these DC characters. Brilliant. Anyway, we continue. The movie's directorial highlight might be the sequence where Barry tries to get a job at a pet store and pauses to save a woman he's smitten with from an oncoming truck, driven by a man who's not paying attention to the road because he's busy trying to pick up a sandwich he dropped. The scene feels like a self-contained short film about the Flash. It would feel that way even if it didn't seem to promise a love story that the film is not interested in developing. No, because the point was we were supposed to get a Flash movie that was going to deal with that, which now has to deal with that. The build-up to the wreck is masterful, with Spielberg-quality visuals. Each time the scene cuts back to the driver going after that sandwich, it's funnier and more appalling. And Flash's subsequent rearrangement of reality to produce the desired outcome. Miller's facial expressions are as perfect as the director's choices. By any objectivity, measure this scene that could be cut for time, but in a restructured, remade movie that seems to exist entirely to showcase Snyder's decadent and voluptuous idea of what superhero myth-making should be. That would be like looking at a peacock and concluding that the problem was too much to plumage. Let me just stop because there's more. There's a little bit more, but let me just say this. I think this film is going to do something damaging to all other superhero films. No one can make a film like Snyder. No one can tell a story like Snyder. I think we could be in a situation where people say, I want everything to be like the MCU. We want everything to be like this. And that's the problem for Warner Brothers and Marvel. Now, I don't care about Marvel, but this is actually a good situation if you're a fan of the Snyderverse and Zack as an artist, and I am. Zack Snyder's Justice League is so fragmented that it could have been titled 32 short films about the Justice League. It often makes momentous promises of set up seemingly important relationships which it promptly forgets. It's also bombastic that it makes Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice seem modest. It will mainly please the people who clamoured for it. Even fans of the genre might consider it a bit much. It owes as much to rock concerts, video games and multimedia installations as it does to commercial narrative filmmaking. It's maddening. It's maddening. It's monumental. It's art. Wow. He got a little bit negative there in the end, but who gives a fuck? Basically, this guy is comparing this film to some of the best out there films ever. If you like Man of Steel and Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, you will like Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. We already knew that. But guess what? There's a lot of intrigued people, and I think people... Remember when we had SnyderCon and Zack said, wake the fuck up? I think this film is going to wake the mainstream audiences and the normies and some of the haters. He's going to wake them the fuck up. And I know, and I apologise that there are some spoilers in these reviews, but I thought it was very important to read these. I am not interested in negativity, but I am going to talk about a little bit of critic negativity with Helen O'Hara now. Now, Helen O'Hara, I think, is a freelance movie journalist. So yesterday, she came onto Twitter, and I can't remember exactly what she said, but she said something. Actually, I'm going to read it back to make sure I'm accurate. So this is what Helen O'Hara had to say. Sometimes you really want to talk about a film, but also can't be bothered with the absolute shitheads who will bitch at you if you do. She's talking about us. So this is, look, this isn't good. Now, I find her quite an intelligent woman, and I think in certain situations you can have a nice little chat with her. But this is the problem. Now, I found something very interesting. Oh, listen to this, right? Basically, right, she comments to someone and she says this. I honestly don't understand some of the reviews. She's talking about the positive ones. Literally can't fathom them. But it's better than the theatrical cut. This is someone who is very salty about Snyder's work. She's also said she's met Zack before and Deb, and they're really nice people. It's important to say that. But she doesn't understand Snyder's work. She doesn't like Snyder's work. She likes some of his films. She doesn't like BVS. Basically, because Zack is doing something different and unique and saying she doesn't understand, she doesn't like it. She wants to tear it apart. It's important to understand also Helen is a very political journalist in terms of talking films. Someone told me she used to be a lawyer. I think she got into movie journalism because she wants to hold movies up, to telling the story of the world she wants to see about the people she wants to see. This is the kind of lunacy we get these days. And listen to this. I think the 2 5-ish hour Snyder Cut might have been pretty. Yeah, this is what she says. I think the 2.5-ish Snyder Cut might have been pretty solid and better than this. Then again, he left vital plot stuff out of the theatrical BVS. So what do I know? Again, she doesn't seem to understand the BVS situation. The things that were left out of the BVS theatrical cut were because the studio didn't want him to release his vision, his 3-hour vision. He already said his theatrical cut of Justice League would have been about 3 hours. Again, she doesn't have enough information and she's being critical. I cannot get behind that. I literally would not be able to stand anywhere near that, whatever she's talking about. Listen to this, yeah. We need your views, especially as some outlets are saying it's better than Avengers. I can't get behind that. I literally would not be able to stand anywhere near that. No, you can't stand anywhere near that because this is a journalist who looks at something like Avengers. It's got humour. It's funny. Again, I find it utterly so disturbing that a film is marked down for its lack of humour. But let's remember what the 2 reviews just said that we spoke about. What did they say? They said there was plenty of humour. So why doesn't she like this film? I don't know, because I'm not going to read her review. I don't want to go down that path. But what got me to this is this, that she calls us shitheads. Basically, she wants to destroy the film on Twitter, right? And she expects Zack's fans, us, not to react. But what's really interesting is Edgar Wright makes a joke. Where is it? Where's Edgar Wright? Here he is. Shaun the Sheep can't be that contentious, can it? Ha 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 ha. For me, Edgar Wright is like that friend you've got sleeping on your sofa that doesn't pay any rent. That's what he is to the movie industry. Did you read that big total film thing? You know, kissing the butts of all his favourite directors. Some of his choices were interesting. But what has he actually done in the industry anyway, Edgar Wright? So Helen is really good friends with Edgar Wright. They obviously follow each other and they share little jokes. Tell me something. Doesn't it seem a bit suspicious to me that movie critics and people in the industry are mates and follow each other and share jokes together? Doesn't that smell of corruption? Because it does to me. But to call the fans shitheads, right? Because a long time ago, she slaughtered Zack's CGI and a lot of the fans came after her. Now listen to me. I'm an old-fashioned guy. I was taught certain things. When I'm having discourse with people, I don't threaten their lives because you're not supposed to do that. I don't swear at them. Even like in midst of the argument without posting anything, I'm screaming in my own house or my room, but I never go that way directly in the conversation. But what she's doing basically here is she's daring you to be toxic. She's daring you to do all these things so she can prove that you are toxic. She's angry that this film is being made. She's angry that Zack Snyder got his opportunity to make this film. We have just read 2 of the best critics in the game give this film 5 stars. We all know, even the ones who haven't seen it, this is going to honour Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice. People like this film. It's getting possible responses. So old Helen is laying on the floor like that gif of the child kicking its legs in the air. She's very, very angry that a bunch of fans, consumer, got their way, because to her the most important people in the industry are critics and the people that make the films, the people that do the films that she wants to watch and she gives 5 stars to. Snyder is an outcast. They don't like Snyder because Snyder dares to trigger them in his films instead of kicking their butts. Central Hollywood makes films for these types of people who know nothing about film. Helen O'Hara knows nothing about film, or how it's done, how it's made. What does she know? If it's true that she is in fact a former lawyer, what do you know, Helen? Why are you even in this? Right. You don't. Basically, you feel the consumer should eat any flavour of fruit pastel it's given instead of choosing the flavour it wants. You look at us as a bunch of beasts. You look down at us as peasants because you're an elite little journalist and you're in with everyone who's centralised and high up in the industry. People like you, Helen, as I say, seem like an intelligent woman. I've spoken to you before. We've argued before. But the thing is, I always let her win higher ground in our little heated debates. Listen, I could destroy her on Twitter easily. I have the IQ without swearing, without threatening her or getting aggressive once. I could destroy her. I have the intellect. I'm more intelligent than her. I think you've all seen my airtight tweets responding to people on Twitter. Remember, at Movies TV Man. But the point here is I don't get deep with this woman because that's what she wants. She wants a real argument so you lose your temper so she can prove Zack Snyder's fans are toxic males. Let me be absolutely clear. We have got a diverse fan base. We have as many women as men and different genders and basically non-binary people, all types of people, and they're equaled out. There's not one more than the other. And yesterday I gave a shout out to the female members of our fandom, but people like this will shout about toxic male fans because they don't want to admit that we're all different and we can all get angry with each other and sometimes people aren't at their classy best. These are people from the extreme left. These are the people you need to ignore. You will never win with these people. You can't win an argument with these people. And one thing that Hollywood needs to stop doing, trying to please these people. These are the antichrist of good movies, right? And these are the people being listened to by Hollywood. Thank God, thank fuck we've got someone like Zack Snyder who doesn't listen to these crackpots. Talking about destroying crackpots, Jay Oliver is back. Yeah, the genius artist, Jay Oliver, who's worked with Zack. I think he worked on Justice League and BVS. And he's here to destroy Scott Mendelson, talking about that Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut is an assembly cut or whatever. He's blocked me ages ago, and I can assure you I wasn't toxic or anything to him, but I disagreed with him, and I probably laughed at him because Zack Snyder destroyed him ages ago. Everybody destroys Scott Mendelson, but he's like one of those spoilt kids that kind of lays on the ground and gets up every time he's pushed over. Anyway, this is Jay Oliver's response. One reason I'll give you, Scott, because the director wanted it. BTW, whatever that means, an assembly cut is when the footage is put together prior to the director and editor sitting down and cutting it down together for the various cuts to be shown to the execs. In animation, the assembly cut is pretty much the same, and it isn't considered a director's cut, until the director has gone through it with the editor. I'm not sure what your definition of an assembly cut is, Scott. Would you care to clarify what an assembly cut means to you? Wow. Whatever your review for the film, good or bad, I just wanted to clarify the term so you don't misuse it in future reviews because you are, after all, a film critic and I don't want you to misuse a film term. Oh my God. I tell you what, that is fucking destruction. You see, Scott Mendelson is pretty much a box office analyst, and this is the problem. We have people professionally who are elite about talking about film, followed and high-fived by other filmmakers and studio heads, who's never been on a set before to work. He's never picked up a camera. He's never edited a film. He doesn't even know what a fucking cut of a film is and how many cuts there are in films, right? I literally know more than him because I've done the job and I've been there and I've learned it from the ground up. This is a box office analyst who shouldn't even be speaking about these things. He should have reviewed the film. But he's another Helen O'Hara who's so butthurt that us, the audience, the people who put money in the fucking pockets of these people were listened to. This is authoritarianism, elite far left individuals who hate males in their 40s. And predominantly males in their 40s and late 30s are the ones who go to the cinema screen and to the cinemas, the movie theatres to see the movies, and they hate us. They despise us. That's why Helen O'Hara called us shitheads, and he'd like to call us shitheads too. Now, I don't like to respond to these people in any way, but like what Jay did there is genius. This is what I do. You bring them down without aggression or swearing, and they don't know what to do because they do not have any intellect. They're not that intelligent. And also, they're not very nice people. They are in their kingdoms, in their bubbles. They are the kings and queens. And they do not like being exposed. Like, I could have exposed Helen, but I don't because I know what she's up to. And how Jay's done it there. So it's absolutely beautiful to see these haters, these nasty people being exposed in a constructive way. But if you can't expose them in a constructive way, go up, go back and reread the Variety review for Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut and the RogerEbert.com one as well. Because those two reviews are the only ones that matter. We have won. We're getting the film. It's going to be a success. People are going to love it. And we have got 75% on Rotten Tomatoes. That, my friends, is what you call a victory. And Helen O'Hara or Scott Mendelson can do nothing to stop that. And finally today, away from Zack Snyder and Zack Snyder's Justice League, we talk about the Arrowverse, DC in general, because Scott Edwards has forwarded me an article from Screen Rant by Dusty Stowe, why the Arrowverse needs another Crisis crossover event. The CW's Arrowverse needs another Crisis crossover event to acknowledge the fast-changing continuity and allow the shows to mesh together. My problem with this is, and I would love it, it needs a build-up. It needs a slow build-up, and you have to wait till after COVID. We've still got... I don't think this can happen anytime soon, by the way, but I understand kind of the logic behind it, why it should happen. The CW's Arrowverse needs another Crisis-level crossover event in order to establish a new era of the franchise. The small-screen DC Shared Universe has hosted several massive crossover events over the years, though the pandemic put the brakes on another event in 2020. That's resulted in shows that, while still entertaining, can feel less connected than they did before. One of the primary appeals of the Arrowverse, the problem is no one at the CW and Warner Brothers Television really want to connect Superman and Lois to the rest of the Arrowverse at this moment. So even if you do get a crossover, and there were little plans, they've decided at this moment in time it's not the way they want to go. The last crossover, Crisis on Infinite Earths, saw massive changes to the Arrowverse after their battle with the Anti-Monitor, like the death of Oliver Queen and the merging of several different realities into Earth Prime. It was the largest scale crossover event for the Arrowverse so far, and seemed to set the standard of what these crossovers could be capable of. This is the problem. This is what I've said, what the Kevin Feige problem is. If you don't give the audience like the most mammoth, epic post-credit scenes, right? And, you know, cameos, they get angry because that's what they're being fed. And Arrowverse has always given these really good interconnective character dynamics and crossovers. And once the audience don't get them, they get a bit frustrated. And because the audience don't have logic to them. Why? Why can't we have this? Why can't it always be interconnected? Because the changing dynamic of Warner Media, the changing dynamic of HBO Max, they won't be, because what's going on here is after Flashpoint, the movie, everything's going to be connected because the walls of the multiverse will break. So it won't just be Arrowverse that will be connected. So they have to thread all these kind of strings first before they can do it. And maybe that's another reason. But as I've already said, Superman and Lois, they don't want to connect it thus far with everything else. The Arrowverse is currently experiencing an evolution of sorts. Supergirl and Black Lightning are winding down, with Superman and Lois promising to shine the spotlight on the CW's version of the Man of Steel and his nascent family. There's also a brand new Batwoman in the guise of Ryan Wilder, who so far has not crossed over with any other Arrowverse heroes. With all these changes in mind, it's prime time for the new era to be established, but these characters getting to interact, letting those potentially leaving the franchise have a climactic goodbyes, and letting the likes of Wilder develop new bonds with the extended Arrowverse world. It's interesting, isn't it? Will they have a crossover before Supergirl and Black Lightning finish? It's unlikely. I think those stories will end. Maybe you'll see them crossover. They can still cross over, but if Supergirl leaves and goes to be with Mon-El, right, for example, because I haven't seen the show in a lot of years, and I think Mon-El's somewhere else, and she goes off-world to be with him, a bit more difficult to cross over, but not impossible. One of the simplest pleasures of the Arrowverse has been watching it evolve from the gritty street-level adventures of Arrow into the fully blossomed, sometimes absolutely bonkers adventures of bright, superpowered heroes like the Flash and Legends of Tomorrow. Let me just stop there, because I want to say something. The highlight of Arrowverse for me was the first 2 seasons of Arrow and the Flash. Right? That's when it was at its peak. It wasn't the crossovers that excited me, even though we did have some small crossovers back then. It was the fact that Arrow was developed so well for its first 2 seasons, as the Flash's first 2 seasons were as well. I think the quality went down after they interconnected it too much. That's just my opinion. And I love crossovers, and I love interconnected superhero stories. But I think Arrowverse was at its best at its origin. Even when a single CW show is suffering for a creative lull, the crossovers tend to energize both the cast and crew, upping their game for what they know are event episodes. It's also always fun to see the new characters interact with the Arrowverse veterans, to see how certain characters who don't usually get to spend much time together bounce off of each other. The relationship between Barry and Oliver added important layers to both of those characters, particularly Oliver, who always seemed to discover his dry wit in Barry's company. The Arrowverse is at something of a turning point. Sorry, someone's in my way with a notification start. Again, the Arrowverse is at something of a turning point. Arrow has exited the stage with Supergirl and Black Lightning soon to follow. Superman and Lois and Batwoman are set to breathe new life into the nearly decade-old continuity, and seeing them interact with the likes of The Flash and Sarah Lance would undoubtedly be a treat. A crisis-level crossover event would give the newer characters a chance to shine among the veterans and move the overall story of the Arrowverse forward yet again. Right, it's a bit, I think, kind of Crisis was as big as Endgame and Infinity War, right, in terms of what it meant for the actual universes. And as we know from Kevin Feige, we ain't getting an Avengers movie anytime soon. We will eventually, but we won't for the next few years. And I think the same goes for Arrowverse. We are not going to get a Crisis on Infinite Earths level crossover again anytime soon, because they are setting up a bigger stage for the movies and all the TV shows to be in the same kind of, not in the same universe, they'll be on their different Earths, but for them to be able to interact. This is what Flashpoint is doing. It's changing everything. But there's no way you are getting a Crisis on Infinite Earths level crossover anytime soon. Probably the next time you see all the characters together, maybe in Flashpoint. Yes, I'm talking about Arrowverse characters and DC Extended Universe characters, and even characters like Michael Keaton. That's where the next big crossover is going to be, and that's why you're not going to get a big level Crisis crossover anytime soon in the Arrowverse. I hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, comment down below, like, share and subscribe, and I'll be back tomorrow with even more DCEU Daily. See you again soon.